What's the most too far you've ever seen a high school prank go? Story 1. Someone let a greased pig loose in the school. It basically ran around and was pretty funny. Teachers did try to catch him, but basically they opened doors and figured the pig would run outside. The janitor went caveman and killed the pig with a broken broom handle. Blood all over the floor. Janitor was fired that day. Story 2. Not seen, but the senior class before I was a freshman had dumped whole buckets of crickets into all of the school's garbage cans. Fast forward, a fight broke out at lunch, and a student was knocked into one of the garbage cans and thousands of crickets spilt out onto the concourse, causing a massive riot, impacting mobs of kids leaving the school. The school was infested with crickets for years. Story 3. At my high school when I was a freshman, a group of seniors had broken into the school the night before with hundreds of bottles of lube to grease up all the staircases in the school. Like 15 kids went to the hospital. One kid cracked his head open and had to be rushed to the ER. Story 4. Dude in my school had a crummy old car that the lock was broken and could easily be put in neutral and pushed around. The steering still locked, so mostly kids would push it into a parking space ahead or behind of it. One day they pushed it and it got away from them and it damn ahead a teacher's car. The kids owned up to it, but considering the owner was so sick of his car being messed with he called the police. Turns out moving a car a few meters is considered vehicle theft around here, and 3 kids were charged and expelled. Story 5. Someone bought multiple bottles of this stuff called liquid and absolutely poured like 10 bottles of the stuff in the men's restroom. It was truly the smell of putrid rotting dead elephant. It was horrendous. If I smelled a dead body it would be the second worst thing I've ever smelled. It was that bad. Our poor janitor was assigned to clean it up, and so he walked in and immediately projectile vomited all over the bathroom and quit the job on the spot. We were now out a janitor, and the mess now had the new addition of vomit on top of 10 bottles of liquid. It took a while to find a new janitor, so the vomit just sort of sat there for a week, and it was basically a biohazard at that point. A new janitor eventually cleaned the mess in a full body suit, but even after bleaching everything we could still smell it for over 6 months. They had to permanently remove the front door to that bathroom. A group of kids staged a kidnapping one time. They borrowed a van and drove in front of a busy shopping center. One guy, pretending to escape, jumped out the trunk all wrapped up in duct tape, to the horror of all the bystanders. The van stopped, 2 kids ran out and recaptured the escapee and drove off. Cops had to go to their homes when the van was identified, and they had a lot of clearing up to do. Story 6. Had a mate in a neck brace for a year because him and another mate would frequently push each other into things like walls, railings, etc. as a joke. The other mate decided to one-up him by pushing him down a flight of stairs. Story 7. So the senior class 2 years ahead of me forked the lawn in front of the school. A classic, right? Well, they took it a bit further. Instead of buying plastic forks in bulk, the seniors, for their whole school year, methodically pocketed the metal silverware from lunch and breakfast. Not every piece every time, but just enough that the lunch staff would think it was accidental loss. We have a small class size, so kids would bust their own trays by dumping the scraps into big trash cans, and sometimes people would forget to take their silverware off first and they'd get lost. We had regular announcements at lunch reminding us to make sure we didn't throw away the utensils. So in this massive conspiracy that only they knew about, they collected hundreds of metal utensils. The night before their last day of classes they snuck into the school grounds and methodically stuck hundreds of forks, knives, and spoons into the grass a foot apart each. To make it worse, one of the 2 custodians had recently been fired and the remaining custodian was an older guy who was perfectly kind and in an ideal world should have retired sooner. He had to pick them all up by himself. I heard one of the teachers came in early and helped him a little bit, and saw the custodian had tears falling down his cheeks. Story 8. This is around a week after the Parkland shooting in Florida. Some freshmen thought it would be a cool idea to bring in a BB pistol during school hours. All the staff thought he was an actual school shooter, and there were a lockdown with everyone ready to throw some heavy books at the first person who came in their rooms. He got expelled and some say that he got sent to juvie. Edit: I should probably provide more context. The dude was planning to play a prank on a friend of his by pulling out the BB gun, and that's how I spent 3 hours in my chem class panicking. Also how the staff realized. Story 9. This actually happened at a friend's school. A guy found a dead pigeon, and the class decided it would be fun to hide it inside a hardcover folder that a teacher left on her desk. The only problem was that the pigeon would bulge the folder, so they had no better idea than to put it inside and stomp the folder and pigeon flat. When the teacher, she was pregnant at the time, opened the folder, she yelled in terror and fainted. They took her out in an ambulance. On the next day the principal informed the class that the teacher suffered a miscarriage and that they were lucky if she didn't press any charges. Needless to say they never told anyone whose idea it was or who participated in the prank. Story 10. One guy from my school sprayed some pepper spray in the air during class because he thought it'd only make everyone's eyes sting a little. Ended up with some students almost suffocating to death, the whole floor getting evacuated, and the guy getting expelled. Story 11. Kid decided to post on Facebook that he was going to shoot up the school, then not show up the next day. The lockdown lasted 6 hours past the final bell until they found this kid. Story 12. A couple of underclassmen crashed a wholesome senior prank and ruined it. The original prank was spray painting the graduating class year all over the building in washable paint. But these kids came by after they were done and did swears and slurs. The graduating class almost didn't walk until parents kept complaining that their kids wasn't at fault. They ended up having to do whatever they did to cover up the writings, and there was still a pillar with it on it for a few weeks after. Story 13. Some seniors came in at night and moved all the desks and whiteboards so that the classrooms were now set up outside. School was outside the next day. The school made them cleans up after school. They repeated the same prank 5 more times. Story 14. At high school, someone in my year group decided it would be a funny idea to run and tackle a bin that was leaning on a pole. He then pretended to be unconscious, and as the group of students watched on, rumors started to go around that he jumped off the second-story walkway and tackled the pole in the air and then fell towards the ground. He continued to pretend to be unconscious, and as soon as the ambulance arrived to check on his injuries, he suddenly jumped up and ran off into the distance and out of the school. Story 15. During every winter, this giant flock of seagulls would always show up at my high school and hang out around campus until springtime. The majority of students ate lunch outside in this huge central courtyard. The seagulls were so annoying and constantly hovering and pretty much begging for food. It was also common to get your food stolen by one if you weren't looking. One day a fellow student had some string in his backpack, so we took 6 feet or so piece of string, tied a bite-sized piece of pizza to one end, and an empty 20-ounce soda bottle to the other. We then proceeded to throw the contraption into a group of seagulls. We never thought they'd fall for it. One seagull swallowed the pizza and started to fly across campus with a string and bottle floating behind him, hanging from his beak. The rest of the seagulls freaked out and were flying behind him as if they were chasing him. The funniest part was that a random female student looked up, saw what she believed to be a floating empty soda bottle, and screamed in horror, "OMG, that bottle is floating." The seagull then vomited up the pizza string contraption and went about his life unharmed. We felt really bad after that and decided not to prank the seagulls anymore. Continued. A few days later, some younger kids, freshmen, tried to mimic our little prank, except it all went wrong for them. A seagull fell for the bait, but ended up getting caught in a tree. The freshmen then started to panic, fearing they'd be in trouble if caught, and had to boost each other up to free the seagull from the tree. The seagull was fine and flew away, but after that, the pranking of seagulls came to an official end. Story 16. In senior year, my genius classmates thought it would be a good idea to take all the books out of the library and make a giant book mountain. Needless to say, we spent around 7 hours learning the Dewey Decimal System. I was livid when the administration forced our whole class to resort the books, even though it was like 3 idiots who made the whole mess. Story 17. This girl a year or two above sent this kid in my year A, and not just any, she was herself. He sent it around to everyone and someone printed it off hundreds and put it up all around the school. Story 18. Some guys thought it would be funny to put a 6-pack of beer in a joint in my trombone case during class. Everyone saw them do it, but I got caught with it. Someone put a couple of dead fish in the laundry dryer at my boarding school. We also had a 3-year string of phantom poopers who would just take shits in random places like corridors, urinals, etc. Must have been different people because you can only be there for 2 years at a time. Most do one. Story 19. I broke into my friend's middle school email account in the middle of the night to send his current email address a message from the future. This message was inspired by that one prank from The Office where Jim sends Dwight faxes from the future about the coffee being poisoned. I took it one step farther and said that my friend needed to stop me and my other friend from playing the piano at break, as otherwise a bomb would go off. My friend took this seriously and alerted a teacher, who immediately knew it was me. Yeah, the police were called, my nearly suspended, and I was grounded for a month. Story 20. I wouldn't call this a prank, but a kid once wrote the name of another kid in his own on the toilet wall. This was a fate worse than death for the unsuspecting victim. Cries of derision could be heard throughout the building. Malicious rumors were spread for weeks. The poor kid was subjected to a social death sentence, a dead man walking. It wasn't until a fateful rainy Thursday afternoon after PE that the wrongly accused was exonerated when the real Shitasso fell victim to his own hubris and was caught brown-handed in the act of fecal graffiti. Story 21. During one of my siblings' tenure, a few students broke into the gymnasium and turned hoses onto the basketball court, completely ruined everything as it ran a good part of the night. I believe they caught and expelled all of them. My class had a few people superglue as many door locks they could reach. That really made everyone happy. Why the old, carry the teacher's Volkswagen into the quad prank that at least only caused some inconvenience and not property damage became a thing of the past? You'll never know. Story 22. Dude at my school broke into the teacher's lounge and microwaved ghost pepper popcorn. They thought it would just make everyone's eyes water a little. They basically maced everyone in the tiny, compact hallway that the teacher's lounge is in. The school has no idea who did it, but classes in that hallway had to be relocated. Edit. They let it burn for a while. Story 23. This all happened a couple of years before I started high school, but someone released thousands of crickets into the building. They're still in the air ducts and we can't get them out. All of the air vents have been locked shut until a solution is found. Story 24. Not necessarily a high school prank, but childish nonetheless. I was in the car business and a couple guys went back and forth pranking each other's cars. I don't remember the second to last move, but the final was a little over the top in my opinion. The finisher decided head had enough and removed the metal bottom door plate holder car and lined the underneath with sardines. Once he screwed the plate back on, no one could figure out where the rotten stink was coming from. We didn't all hear until later what he actually did, but the guy he did it to ended up selling his car at a loss because he couldn't get rid of the smell. Story 25. Had friends that would dry dock and upper deck dry dock, flush all of the water out of the toilet by turning the water off. Proceed to take a nasty without water. It's an awful cleanup. Upper deck, take in the toilet tank, wait for someone to discover it. My friends are dicks. Story 26 for a senior prank at my high school. A group of kids stole a ton, if not all I can't remember, of the bathroom stall doors. While the administration was trying to figure out who did it to replace all the missing doors, they had makeshift plywood doors installed. They eventually caught the kids who did it and formally charged them with theft and a few other things. It was pretty genius, though to pay the legal fees, the kids got a shitload of t-shirts printed with the phrase "I prefer the plywood," and most of the school bought them in solidarity. So all in all, a kind of heartwarming ending to a too-far situation. Story 27 Someone placed posters of hentai around the school in various locations. A separate group of guys took everything out of a classroom and put it all on the roof. The school didn't tolerate end-of-year pranks after that. Story 28 A year before I transferred to a school, I learned that some seniors greased the steps with baby oil, causing students to slip and fall, including teachers, one of which was several months pregnant. The principal ordered that they do not get to walk for graduation. There was this whole mess with the parents fighting to get the punishment overturned. Some of the students got punished and others got to walk for graduation. The parents were like, no one got seriously hurt and it was just a prank. But seriously? Story 29 Going back about 15 years ago, a group of 10 to 13 senior kids decided to raid our community school and literally rip off all tube lights, bend all ceiling fans, smash some walls, etc. There was quite a substantial amount of damage. At that time CCTVs weren't all that famous or used, so it was difficult to identify, but luckily there were some eyewitnesses and the boys and their parents were immediately summoned. Kids suspended and parents were asked to foot the bill. Oh, and the kids were named and shamed in front of the whole community. Edit grammar. Story 30 This was actually in middle school. The bathrooms had particularly low ceilings. One day some boys went into the girls' bathroom during class time, I guess, when the least amount of people would be in there, and somehow managed to get a chair up into the ceiling tiles. Many girls knew they did this and we all thought it was pretty funny. We forgot about the chair for like a week until it came crashing down onto a girl who was using the toilet. This girl was very frail and super underweight. It came down and knocked her out. The school went on lockdown while the paramedics took her to the hospital. She was fine. They locked the bathrooms the rest of the year and only opened them between classes. Many kids would go to the nurse to use the bathroom when they couldn't hold it in class. Story 31 When I was a freshman, the senior prank was releasing farm animals into the school. A couple had to be put down because of injuries they sustained while running loose. My senior year, someone on the cafeteria floor and then surrounded it with some sort of clear oil. One of the janitors got hurt trying to clean it up. I'm all for a funny pranks, but this was just vandalism and cruelty. Story 32 When I was a freshman, the seniors hung up a blacklist everywhere in the building which depicted all the people, mostly freshmen, they hated for no specific reason. On their last school day, all of them were completely wasted. They started chasing all the people whose names and pics were on the blacklist, tied them up and brought them to a stage while the rest of the school sat downstairs. Being the audience, they embarrassed these people on the stage. They poured water over them and pushed their wet heads into flour or other stuff that got sticky with the water. Some of the victims got over it fast and laughed about it later, while some broke down crying, not ever wanting to go back to school again. Later, we all had to talk to our teachers about this and tell them how we felt about it. I wasn't on that blacklist, but I knew some of the students who were. I thought it wasn't ab-cut fun anymore. By the time I was a senior, we weren't allowed to do anything of the sort anymore, so we just threw some water balloons at the other kids. It was a hot summer's day, so everybody actually liked it. Story 33 My brother's senior class decided it'd be a fun prank to break into the school at night. They put dead fish in lockers, shaving cream all down the halls, and broke into the main office and smashed some computers. They then egged the outside for good measure. That hallway smelled like for a good month after. None of them faced any legal consequences because one of the kids' dad is a lawyer, but I think they lost their scholarships. Story 34 Someone took all the books out of the library and set them outside. The librarians had to spend the next few days trying to reshelve every single book. Story 35 Don't know what my class did, but the class above me ran down the halls and sprayed either skunk or spray everywhere. Dumb part was, they still had to go to class like the rest of us, so they had to smell that god-awful smell the whole day like everyone else. People gagged, some threw up, it was awful. Story 36 A girl in my country was paralyzed for life because someone put a needle on her seat. The needle somehow traveled from her buttocks to her spine, severing it. Story 37 My old high school had a rivalry with another high school in the same district. Years ago the football teams would play pranks on each other. They escalated to the point of the other high school killing a black cat and hanging it from a tree at our school. Our mascot was the Panthers. Story 38 At my high school, just one kid or maybe two kids cut down all the trees at our school. There was maybe around 15 to 20 dead. If you search up Tehachapi High School up on YouTube, there's a video on the news about it. Story 39 During the year the class above mine had their year 12 muck-up day, 3 of the guys were standing at the front gate of the school with Nerf guns and balaclavas demanding money to enter the school. They explained they were donating all the money to charity in their year's name but wanted to have fun. Around lunchtime they went down the main street to deposit the money to then donate it, but they forgot to take off the balaclavas as they approached the bank. Locals called the police. All the banks in the main SD went under lockdown for suspicious men in balaclavas walking down the street with a Hessian bag. They got to the bank, which had the shutters down for the lockdown, banged on the door wondering what's up since it was the middle of the week. shrugged it off, and went back to school where police eventually caught up with them and the whole thing was straightened out. Thankfully no one hurt or charged, but a massive stuff up on the boys' part. Story 40. These bag jocks wanted to trick a girl who was in the special ed class to go with them to prom only to stand her up. Thankfully it was stopped before it actually happened, but that still pisses me off to this day. Story 41. Not entirely sure if it was a prank or someone's awful idea of revenge, but once someone emptied a water bottle, puked in it, then threw Mentos in and put it all in a locker, that exploded and the whole hallway smelled like vomit for ages. I would always hold my breath for as long as I could when I had to walk past it. Story 42. Not all seen by me, but I heard from teachers a few letting 4 pugs loose in the school, numbered 1, 2, 3 and 5, taking a car apart and reassembling it around the flagpole, putting the German teacher's desk out on the tennis courts which are visible from the German room. A year or so ago the German and Spanish students a year older than me switched classrooms. The German students went to the Spanish room and vice versa. The teachers got a kick out of that one, and I think they let the kids goof around that period. Edit pigs, not pugs. Story 43. My high school was quite large and was a campus with many buildings, and in my junior year a senior drove the campus ripping wheelies on his dirt bike wearing only a jockstrap that got the administrators up in arms. Story 44. In my brother's school like 10 years ago, apparently these seniors tried to prank their teacher by putting 3 Viagras in his coffee. Legend has it he taught with the chair blocking him the entire time. Story 45. Legend has it that one summer, our town got super hot and my high school decided to have a school-wide water balloon fight. It was wholesome fun at first, with kids using balloons, water guns, and super soakers to relieve some heat. Then somebody, probably a bunch of them, decided to just use whatever that not water instead. Pretty soon some nasty stuff was in the air. We're talking pee, watered down, dirt water, condiment water, etc. That was probably years, maybe a decade ago. They don't do that sort of thing anymore. Story 46. Perhaps not a prank per se, but we were doing group assignments where we were supposed to write and then act out a play that described hardships which related to human rights violations. My group had written some stuff about a fugitive family and we had a baby doll as a prop. As we played it out on stage in front of the rest of the school, one of the guys decides to improvise. So he took the doll and started raping it in very elaborate moves, and it went on and on for so long, and due to group mentality most of the audience were laughing their asses off. Except the teachers, which to put it mildly were giving us death stares. After our play everyone had to leave the hall except us. Sure got our asses told that day, had to attend meetings with the staff later and have parents sign on meeting notes and stuff. I guess it was just a display of youthful ignorance. The concept of rape was just abstract to most of us. Thinking back now, I am sure due to statistics, that someone in the audience could relate more. Feels bad, wasn't my doing, but still. Story 47. Not at school but university in the UK. We took a lot of field trips with my degree and went to Spain a few times. There was this rather strange girl in my group who used to try to pee outside standing up, usually not very well hidden. She kept a tally chart in the back of her notebook on successful standing pisses. Anyway, it turned out that she was also terrified of crickets, so one hot afternoon, strange girl starts acting shifty and disappears behind an old rundown farm building at the top of a large hill we were stood on. At the same time my friend notices a rather large cricket in the bushes near us. We both smile at each other at the brilliance that is about to unfold. My friend picks the cricket up, sprints round the corner and screams catch the cricket, as he throws it at this poor girl. Except she wasn't, she was squatting out a huge stinking deuce. She goes from 0 to 10 in bowel movements and starts flailing wildly to avoid the now airborne cricket. She topples herself over the edge of the hill and rolls around 50 meters down this hill like a rag doll. Pants round ankles. Shit's going down. She came to a stop at the bottom of the hill and made a sound I didn't know was possible. Like a winded hippo trying to scream. Anyway, she said she couldn't move and the university staff came and called an air ambulance. We stood and watched her get winched out of this ditch by helicopter as she cried her eyes out. Covered in her own. I felt so bad for her, but my friend, he thought he had killed her. The look on his face was almost worth it. Story 48. A friend of mine threw a stink bomb into a classroom for a senior prank, horribly backfired. The whole school smelled like rotten eggs all day. Everyone knew who did it too. Another time stink bomb guy. Another friend will call R, and I went to a store. We hit the bathroom to drink some booze before heading out. R decided to take A and me and Bomber threw wet napkins at him since he was vulnerable at the time. He got pissed and in a Ziploc bag to throw it at us. We calmed him down. So instead we decided to prank someone with it. Ideas came and went. Mailbox, nah. Throw at someone's car, nope. Take it to the school and put it in someone's bag in the gym locker room. Oh yeah, next day it was a huge story. R admitted to doing it and he has become a legend for it. Students still talk about it sometimes. Story 49. This was during marching season, so in my freshman year someone bought hundreds of laxatives and he put them on like half the band's water jugs. He only managed to do this cause the jugs were left out in the band hall while we were warming up. Story 50. Not high school but middle school. Wasn't there for it as it was a different set of classes teachers than mine. However, I grew up with a kid who did it, so I got the full scoop afterwards. He for some reason thought it would be funny to put hand lotion in a teacher's drink and she got mega sick from it. Pressed charges and stuff afterwards since she had to go to the hospital for basically being poisoned. I have no clue who or what made him think it was funny, but a bit too far if you ask me. Story 51. We had a school project to make an ad for something in our town, So we borrowed the school's video camera and a mannequin from the art department, went to the top of a big cliff that's right in the middle of our town and set up a bungee jumping platform before throwing the dummy off with a rope tied to its leg. About 10 minutes later there were 5 cop cars screaming up the hill and a bunch of paramedics running to the bottom, because someone called the emergency line about a group of teenagers throwing someone over the edge. Story 52 Light Crew played on the projector in the auditorium during a school-wide assembly. Group got 1 week suspension. Still the best prank I've ever pulled. Story 53 in Casper, Wyoming. There are 2 high schools, one of the few cities in Wyoming that more than one high school. Every year there are some kind of pranks on homecoming week. Well, in the gymnasium of one of the high schools, suspended over 20 feet high is a statue of a Trojan, which is the school sports team name and mascot. Well, someone broke into the gym, somehow got the statue down, then took it to an undisclosed location and painted it in orange and white strips, which was the color of our school, then it was put in the homecoming parade as a float. They in turn broke into our school and painted all the hallways, floors and lockers in roller-wide green paint stripes on all 3 floors. For those who want to check, it was 1978. Story 54 They threw water balloons from the top of the hall during an assembly. There's an above area which seniors can sit in, and it looks down on the other years. I just remember All Star started playing and watching as the student reps came off the stage and pulled some water pistols out and started shooting the kids at the front, who happened to be all the disabled kids and refugees. The water bombs then started raining down and I could see the refugee kids who all sit together at the from because they're in an English as a second language class start hiding under their seats. Must have been traumatizing. Someone's phone got smashed, and the punishment, everyone has to clean up then go home early, on the last day. How awful. Ball set the palm tree in front of the library on fire. Also kidnapped the Sinclair dinosaur from Circle K. Story 55 for end of year senior pranks. One of our teachers had a very small car which people realized they could lift with a little bit of teamwork. The previous year they carried it into the school stadium and the teachers had to help the owner carry it out. My final year, it was going to be put in the library before the administration had to step in to outlaw all pranks. Story 56 Best friend jerked off in brownies and gave them to the school as a secret Valentine's Day present. Kid ate them and shared them with his friend. They were the last ones to find out what happened. Fight broke out. My friend almost was killed. Both partos ended up in court. Everyone involved was expelled. Story 57 Someone let a goose in one of the halls. It eventually got into a room after attacking a bunch of people, and a bunch of staff had to grab it and carry it out while it was biting and honking angrily. Story 58 I grew up in rural Central America and some idiot brought a chicken to the senior class. It was funny at the beginning, but they started to beat the chicken to death. They kicked and tossed it around for nearly 2 hours until it was bloodied and limping in pain. I told those bastards to leave it alone, but they kept going. Story 59 Our school has a world music announcement once every week. Usually different countries like Ethiopia or Britain are talked about. One kid played Pumped Up Kicks on the announcements while dressed up as Eric Harris. He's 18 and in jail now. Story 60 The TV in the lunchroom was bolted to the wall so no one would steal it. Some savvy seniors figured out how to lock out all of the Fiasco remote buttons, and played midget during the busiest lunch period. It took several minutes to unbolt the TV from the wall. Story 61 That video where the kids have their moms brought in. Kids are blindfolded and the moms make out with them. That went too far when someone even brought up the idea. Story 62 This was told to me by my father. I believe it to be true, but he may be lying. The school parking lot and the tennis courts were connected. To prevent students pulling onto the courts, there were a row of low pylons separating the areas. Class president drove an original VW Beetle. Dad, being a football player and a few of his larger football buddies, picked the car up and put it on the tennis courts after school one day. She alerted the administration the next morning and asked them to offer amnesty to the pranksters if they just put the car back on the other side of the pylon. Being good sports and seeing a good plea deal, the boys go to the Beetle to return it to legal parking. She had filled it with a few sandbags overnight. Story 63 There was a teacher in my high school with pretty severe OCD. The senior class, when I was maybe a sophomore, came in after classes one evening for their senior prank, and also went to said teacher's room and shifted a bunch of random in it and on his desk ever so slightly. The teacher had a panic attack the next morning and had to go home. I felt so bad when I heard about it. Story 64 Don't know if it was a prank or not, but I remember walking into the bathroom and there by the door was a soft brown turd coiled up like a snake. Yes, it stank, I almost stepped in it. Then some lady walks in behind me and sees and she's like, who's responsible for this? Story 65 At my dad's high school, the seniors were running around with liquid hair remover and water guns. Then during graduation you just saw people with a giant bald spot on the side of their head. Story 66 The class of 89 decided they'd pull the fire alarm 89 times. They made it 14 or 15 times before they were all caught, and were given the choice of community service, several public apologies versus substantial jail time, which is how we all know who it was. They picked apology, duh. Weirdly, the class of 2019 made it over 30 times, and nobody was ever caught, despite the fact that my daughter's school has seemingly infinite cameras. WTF, surveillance age. Story 67 Technically this is junior high, but a girl lit the bathroom on fire to get out of taking finals. The whole school had to evacuate for hours and the bathroom was closed for months. While she did get out of her finals, she also went to juvie, so. Story 68. A kid rode a motorcycle down the hallway of the school, during the school day, and it was a K-12 school, and he rode it down the elementary school hall. He was criminally charged and lost a sports scholarship to an American university. Story 69. My school has a PA system based on the phones on the school's network. In the past, all you needed was to come on the PA was call the PA number on the phone. The bell chimes and you can talk from any phone to the whole school. The PA number was uncovered by some unknown hero and was spread around the senior class. One day, every few minutes, the PA bell chimes, you hear music or heavy breathing or distant laughing for a second or two, and the click of a receiver. The principal was running around the school in a fury looking for the culprit. Eventually, the number was changed at least. The PA phone in the office looks old, so it might be on a separate phone network now, or if I'm lucky, you'll be able to pull the same senior prank someday. Another favorite: the rival school stole the local big boy statue and put it on their school's roof. Story 70. Not me, but someone I know was a special education teacher at a school for the disabled prior to becoming a psychotherapist. She told me that the last year that she was there, the seniors decided to take the wheels off her car as their prank, but they decided that wasn't enough. She gets outside and finds that her car has been moved to the roof. Building was a single floor and placed on cinder blocks. She started putting in applications to clinical programs that same day.